Bradley Cy Brooks was a 36-year-old from Corpus Christi, Texas. He had just moved there to live with his girlfriend, where he worked in construction. On the night of August 18th, 2019, Brad allegedly went fishing after talking to his girlfriend's niece's boyfriend. Brad's vehicle was found a few days later. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Denzel, and this is Unfound. Have you ever noticed that there is some kind of weird thing, is it a paradox, regarding humans and water? What do I mean? Think about this. 60% of the human body is water. 60%. People love to live by a body of water. I've been doing that for the last year and a half, and yep, it's awesome. The water sport industry grosses billions of dollars every year, selling boats, jet skis, scuba equipment, a crazy load of money. Yet, in contrast to all of that, humans don't have a natural affinity for the water. What do I mean? Well, if you throw a weeks-old puppy into the water, it naturally knows how to swim. But you do that to even an adult human who hasn't had a swimming lesson, that person has a huge chance of drowning. Moreover, as advanced as we are in 2020, we still fish like our ancestors did thousands of years ago, with a pole, a line, and some bait. Not to mention that 45 years later, many people are still afraid to go back in the water due to that movie, despite it being fiction. Well, in the disappearance of Bradley Brooks, he'd only been in Corpus Christi for 6 weeks. But in that time, he'd found some good fishing spots. And that's what people thought he was doing that night. Then he was gone. His car found just a few feet from the bay. And we're left to wonder what happened at the water's edge. And now a summary of the case. Brad Brooks never graduated high school, but that was no big deal. He knew what he wanted to do. Brad wanted to work instead, in the oil fields of West Texas. He made good money. Along the way, Brad got a girlfriend, and they had a daughter, Kaylee. However, the relationship didn't last. In addition, Brad developed a meth addiction that he fought on and off for several years, ending up in jail at least once due to this affliction. But things started to look up when Brad reconnected with a friend from elementary school, Ashley. That developed into a relationship, with Brad surprising Ashley by moving to Corpus Christi in the summer of 2019. Other positive developments were that Brad had kicked his drug habit, and his daughter decided to join him and Ashley in their home. So on August 18th, 2019, Brad and Ashley brought 17-year-old Kaylee to Corpus Christi. She got to meet Ashley's sons and her teenage niece, Aubrey. Yet something wasn't right. As soon as they arrived, Brad went directly to the bathroom and stayed there for over 30 minutes. Then, after Ashley and one of her sons went to play tennis, Brad left with Aubrey unexpectedly, with no explanation. Later, after they all returned home at around 9:30 p.m., Ashley wanted to get something to eat, yet would not allow Brad to drive since it seemed he was either drunk or high. So they went in separate cars. The last time Ashley saw Brad, he was in the drive-thru at McDonald's, with her across the street at Jack in the Box. However, after this, Brad stopped by where Aubrey's boyfriend lived, and the two had a conversation. Brad was never seen again. His car was found 5 days later at a spot along Corpus Christi Bay, no more than a half-mile from Ashley's house. The vehicle did not possess any clues regarding Brad's disappearance, although several items were missing from it. Brad's case is very complex, with multiple people and locations, with the timeline playing a significant role in understanding everything that night. This is why I've created a supplemental video for this disappearance that you can find on Unfound's YouTube channel. Please check it out. In the meantime, I ask that you contemplate these questions as you listen to the interviews, yes, interviews plural, regarding Brad's case. Number 1. Why doesn't Aubrey's story regarding where she and Brad went that night quite add up when considering the amount of time they were gone? Number 2. What are we to make of the multiple items missing from the car? And number 3. Could the theft of Kaylee's purse at Ashley's house 24 hours after Brad disappeared be related to his case? Brad's family and Ashley are open to multiple theories regarding his disappearance, including foul play. The guests for this episode are Misty Chapman, Brad's sister, and Ashley Nelson, Brad's girlfriend. Unfound news. This past Monday, October 5th, I finally got to do another Unfound Now. This one covers the September 25th, 2020 disappearance of Stephanie Hollingsworth from Orlando, Florida. It is now playing on the Unfound Podcast Channel on YouTube. I hope you will watch it. Next, if you are not aware, my assistant Natasha posts the last part of the live show every Thursday on the YouTube channel. This is the section that previews that Friday's disappearance. This allows all of you to get a heads up on the episode for that week before it plays. I hope you will put it on your viewing schedule for every Thursday. Finally, from October 12th to October 15th, I will be in Orlando to see my sister from Ohio, who will be staying at her timeshare for the week. The live show will happen as scheduled. However, I won't be as available on social media as I usually am. It will be good to see her and her husband. I haven't seen them since this time last year. Where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on Podomatic, iTunes, Stitcher, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Deezer, Facebook, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us on our podcast channel for the Unfound Live Show. All of you can talk with me, and I can answer your questions. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. This week for Patreon, I need to thank Joe and Miranda. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. And do not forget the website, theunfoundpodcast.com. A note before this section begins. As I stated after the summary, I interviewed 2 people for this episode, Misty and Ashley. This was done at separate times. Then the conversations were spliced together into one interview. To make sure you are not confused as to who is talking at what time, I will announce when I go from one woman to the other. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the sister of Bradley Brooks, Misty Chapman. Misty, welcome to Unfound.
Hi. Thanks for having me on today.
You're very welcome. Let's start where we usually do, and that is with the missing person and his or her family. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about the Brooks family, your Brad's sister? How many brothers and sisters? What was the Brooks family like?
So my brother and I are real dad. I say real dad because we also have our now dad, Dennis. So we started out with just us two. Parents divorced when we were both very young. My mom did it on our own. So it was just me, my brother, and my mom for a long time until Dad now came along.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought her, and she was 5 at the time, Jessica, and so then we all became one unit then.
And what year, how old were you? How old was Brad? What year was this about?
They got married in 1999. I believe I was 12, so Brad would have been 14.
Okay.
And Jessica would have been 6, I believe.
Okay, so there's, you have like a half-sister then?
She's technically stepsister. I've never considered her nothing but a sister.
Okay, great. That's fine. All right, so you have a sister that's 6 years younger than you, and then Brad was 2 years older than you. What kind of older brother was he?
Ornery. Yeah, he was sweet though. He would always protect me from anything, but definitely ornery. He liked to play pranks on me. But turn and run when I got mad because I would come get him.
Okay. All right. Well, you were close in age, 2 years, so he couldn't beat up on you too bad. 2 years of separation is not much, but he was the older brother, and what kind of relationship did he have with your other sister, Jessica, who was 8 years younger than him?
Well, when Jessica came into our family, Brad had actually moved out. But they still had a good relationship when he was around. Piggyback rides and playing with her and joking with her too. We all like to wrestle, so that always worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
We never broke anything.
I never broke anything?
Yeah.
Whether bones or furniture?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's now talk about Brad exclusively. Being his younger sister, you already said he liked to play practical jokes, etc., wrestle. But what was he into himself? Was he into sports, music, hunting and fishing? What were his interests?
I know that he played baseball, and he was very good at it. His nickname for him was BB.
Huh. BB. Why is that? What was that? Oh, so Brad Brooks.
Because he was, Brad Brooks, and he was fast.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Like a BB gun.
Like a BB gun, right. That's right. BB gun, and okay. So he was into baseball, so he played like Little League. Did he play in high school?
No, he didn't play in high school. I think just elementary, middle school.
Okay. All right. And any other interests that you can remember? And we should maybe add, where did you all grow up? What town, what city?
We went to Mansfield High School and grew up in Mansfield, Texas.
Mansfield, Texas.
Home of the Tigers.
Okay, the Tigers. Okay, being there in Texas, you didn't play football? Football's big in Texas. Didn't play football?
No, he did not play football.
Okay, either did I. Okay, so he's into baseball. School, what kind of schooling did he have?
Let's see. He did well through school in the beginning, but towards the end, he dropped out at around 10th grade. He
did. Why do you think that was?
Yes. He did not want to be there.
Okay. Well, I can certainly understand that. I just have to ask, not to pry too much, but your parents just allowed him to do that, or what was it?
Oh, no. My mom spent many times trying to get him out the door to school. She had even had to call the truancy officer on him. My dad had tried to get him home, and he would pretend he had left and then come home and hide. Several problems with keeping him in school, even if we got him there. So he just refused. He did not want to be there. He did not want to go.
What do you think that was all about, looking back at it now, all these years later? What do you think that was? I mean,
now,
I mean, we all know that most kids don't want to go to school. If we could get out of it. We could get out of it. What do you think was a little bit different with Brad?
With Bradley, I think things happened when he was younger that were not his fault, weren't anyone's fault, but the person that did it to him, if you can understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I don't think he was ever the same. He wouldn't talk about it. My mom sent him to counseling. He did not speak about it at all, and never really has, and probably still wouldn't to this day. So I think the reason of not going to school is that he's been hurt, and he was just done. I think he was just done.
Okay. All right. So what did he do instead? If he wasn't going to school and he dropped out, what did he do with his time?
He moved to Odessa, and he started in the oil field and just worked.
Okay. So what year, how old was he when he dropped out of school?
He would have been about 16 when he dropped out.
And he went, at 16 years old, he just went right to working in the oil fields.
Ooh, I couldn't tell you that was his exact first job. He was probably carried by my grandparents for quite a while before he got a job.
All right, so he dropped out of school, but he he didn't go right to the oil fields then. He found something to do with his time as a 16-year-old.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then finally, what year would you say that he ended up going to work in the oil fields?
Honestly, I would say probably as soon as he could. If it was 18, then 18, because that was a family thing. He definitely would have went in there pretty quickly.
Okay, so he goes and
he
does...
He liked the idea of money and having lots of money, so that was definitely the place he wanted to go.
Well, who doesn't, Misty? All right.
Right.
Okay, so he goes and works in the oil fields, 18-year-old single guy, girlfriend, anything like that? Anyone like that?
Well, yes. He was with Becky for a very long time. That's Kaylee's mom.
All right. And, okay, so that was his relationship. And when was Kaylee born, roughly?
Kaylee was born in 2004.
Okay. All right, so he and Becky have a child together. Are they all then living where he was in Odessa? They were all there?
Yes, and I believe she was born in 2003, so
2000.
It's not for you. Kaylee was born in 2003.
All right, so she's not 17 yet. She turned 17 this year. Okay, so Becky and Brad are together. Did they get married?
No, they never got married.
Okay.
Brad and Becky just stayed engaged forever.
Okay. And, of course, we know that he was in a relationship with another woman who's also being interviewed for this episode. But what happened between Brad and Becky to end that relationship? Do you remember? Do you know?
I could say honestly that I don't fully know.
Okay.
I'm sure there were lots
of reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. But can you even give the audience a rough year? Of course, he just a very new disappearance. Just disappeared last year. But when would you say that Becky and Brad broke up?
Well, they were off and on again. So I'm going to say when Kaylee was around 5 or 6 was the last off and done.
Okay. So maybe 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Okay. And did he have any other relationships? Of course, we know about Ashley. Once again, she'll be interviewed for this episode. Any other women that jump out at you that come to mind?
No. I knew he dated, but nobody he's ever actually brought home or like, hey, this is my girl. Just Becky and Ashley.
Okay. All right, great. And I will be asking Ashley about her relationships. I'm just leave that to her. I'm not going to ask you about that. We'll let her explain it. Okay. So he's in Odessa working the oil fields, but we also have to talk about this. We don't want to hit it too hard. We never hit it, what I would say, too hard, this topic on any discussion that we have on Unfound, but we do need to talk about this. At some point, did Brad start a drug addiction somehow?
My mother says that it started in his early teens, on 12, with weed. Not sure when meth started, though.
Okay. All right, and in your opinion, as his sister, how bad did it get? Were you around him very much? Doesn't sound like you lived in Odessa. I don't know how often you were seeing him, but did you get any feelings talking to him or maybe from other people in your family on how bad it got?
No, I was actually completely clueless. I was still younger and didn't understand anything about drugs or how people acted. I didn't even understand when we were drinking. I could understand that, but I had no clue when they were doing something else. I'm only now as an adult learning what the effects of those kinds of things look like on people. Just never dabbled in it, never thought about it, and was really clueless. So
okay. Well, thank you for being very honest about that, Misty. So what you're saying is, when you were talking to him, or maybe you got together with him, maybe a family function, Christmas, it never occurred to you, at least at the time, that Brad had an addiction.
No, it did not.
Okay. Now, I've read, this is, I think, public knowledge, and once again, I don't want to hit it too hard, but did Brad spend some time in jail, specifically in 2018?
Yes, he did.
Okay. For what? Do you know?
So he was in jail in 2018 for not paying his fines in Love County. And I believe the Love County incident was theft.
He stole something.
I believe he was stealing out of cars.
He was. Wow. Okay. And I guess he got caught. And how much time do you think this was to further his drug addiction? You suspect?
I'm not sure.
Okay. At the time, 2018, did your family know about that, or is that something you didn't find out until he went missing?
So my brother and my mom have almost constant contact daily. When she didn't hear from him for 2 days, she immediately messaged me and asked me to see if I could find him. And I found him on day 3, I believe. He was in a jail.
Okay. And how long?
We knew almost immediately.
Okay. And how long did he have to stay there?
I believe he was in for 2 weeks and then was released at that time. But because of the fines, that's why he had to go back.
Okay. Do you think that over the years, once again, I know you have your own life to live, and he's in another city, Odessa, you're not there. Do you know if he ever spent any time in jail for any other time, at any other time?
Yes, he did.
He did.
He spent a couple of stints in jail, mostly under 2 years.
Okay.
He did.
Okay. I have to ask, I've not looked up his criminal record, but anything that you would call violent?
No.
No? Okay.
It was drug-related.
Drug-related.
Almost all of them were drug-related, yeah. Just the last one, I believe, was theft. But don't quote me on that, because I don't know either.
Okay. I'll be probably asking Ashley about that as well, too, so that's fine. We're just trying to get an idea of what was going on in his life, what he was doing. The big point I would make here is if a missing person spent time in jail in 2018, then they go missing in 2019, you start thinking, well, could something have been connected there? Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
You know, if we knew what happened to him, we could just go solve it right now. But, you know, if it had been in jail 20 years ago or something, then, you know, I don't think it could be connected to his disappearance. But the year before, then, you know, then we need to start, you know, possibly thinking about that. But that wasn't in the Corpus Christi area. That was somewhere else, right?
Yeah, it was in Oklahoma.
It was in Oklahoma. All right. In Love County, Oklahoma?
Yes.
Wow, we covered a disappearance from Love County. Maybe you've heard of it. Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, they went missing in Love County, Oklahoma.
I believe I have, actually.
Yeah, we covered that disappearance early this year. Okay, I was going to say Love County. Okay, so
I'll have to go back and give it a listen.
Okay, thank you. So he has these things going on. Is he, and given through all of this, going to jail? Is he able to get work when he gets out of jail? Is he going back to the oil fields? What was he doing?
Yeah, almost he went back to oil field. That's what he knows. He's really good at it, so he always went back to that.
Okay.
All right. There was one time he worked at Sonic.
Okay. Okay. So he's in Odessa. He's working in the oil fields. He's having some problems with the law, but he's getting out. It seems like these companies are taking him back. And he's in the oil fields working for a long time. You know, just to remind all of the listeners, he was 36 years old when he disappeared. So if he went to work in the oil fields when he was 18, he spent half his life working in the oil fields. Right? It's a long time.
Yeah.
To be doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
He did really good at it.
Right. And okay. But then, I don't know if this was out of nowhere, but you could explain it to me, and I'm going to talk to Ashley about this. He decides he's going to move to Corpus Christi, which is, of course, right on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Did that surprise you? Tell the listeners a little bit about that.
Well, when I found out he was going to move there, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, living by the beach, actually, who wouldn't love that? And I was excited for him because Mom had been telling how great things were going for him and Ashley. And so I was really excited to see what was about to happen. And I thought it was going to be pretty cool.
Okay. Was it a surprise to you?
That he was going to move down there?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Not really. I don't know about the economy of Corpus Christi, but could he work in oil there, or was he going to have to do something new? What were you thinking when you found out he was going to have to move?
I gotcha. Okay. No, honestly, he's always commuted. So, I mean, in the oil field, most people who are in the oil field do have to commute quite a far when the rig moves. Mm-hmm. They don't stay in one place for too long. Usually 2 weeks to a month, sometimes 3 months. They'll be in the same spot, but then they move. So he is very used to commuting. That's no big deal. He goes there, stays for a week, maybe 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I can't remember his schedule, but I believe 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So, yeah, he was there for 2 weeks, stayed there, and then would come home for 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. And so then, though, he's in this relationship with Ashley, and we'll get into how they met. Did you know that he was in this relationship with Ashley?
Yes, I did. I think my mom had told me a few months prior.
Okay. All right. So he's working the oil fields. You know, originally, though, he was in Oklahoma. He's going to Odessa, and then we'll get into how he met Ashley here in a moment, and then he decides to move to Corpus Christi to live with her and her kids there, and your family's all good with it.
I mean, okay. my parents didn't seem to have a problem with it. So.
Okay.
I now announce Ashley Nelson into the program.
I'm now so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the girlfriend of Bradley Brooks, Ashley Nelson. Ashley, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Let's start here. You two were a couple at the time of his disappearance. How did you and Brad meet?
I've known Brad my whole life. His mom and my mom were best friends since 4th, 5th grade. So his family has always been pretty much my family. We've always been pretty much family.
Wow, would that have been in Texas? I know we talked about Oklahoma when I spoke to Misty. In Oklahoma or where?
So they lived in Odessa.
Oh, okay.
And then when I was really little, they ended up moving. I think he was born in Oklahoma, but they ended up coming to Odessa, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe 5 or so, they moved away to Dallas.
Oh, okay. And how did you, if they moved away, how did you rekindle your friendship and eventual relationship with Brad?
Well, we didn't talk for a very long time. I know that he had lived back in Odessa with his dad, and I had seen him here and there. Like I said, we've kind of always considered each other family, so we've always, if we've seen each other, we always said hi, or we were family. Throughout the years, every few years or so, he would reach out and ask how I was doing. I would ask how he was doing. We'd have a simple one-day conversation, and then I wouldn't hear from him again for a couple years.
Huh. And so, if you can say, what finally turned the tide to you becoming a couple? And when did that happen?
It was New Year's Eve, 2018. I guess created a new Facebook page, and he sent me a friend request like he usually does when he does that. And he said hi, and we just started talking. And I don't know what happened this time. We just continued to talk. Mm-hmm. And we built a relationship.
If you could just say the year again, New Year's Eve of what year?
It was New Year's Eve of 2018.
2018. Okay. And so you started talking and everything, and when would you say was the first time you two got together and saw each other in person after this?
I made a trip on, I believe it was March 7th, 2019. I went to Fort Worth, and we spent the weekend together.
Okay. Cool. All right, so that's how it all started after years and years of knowing each other. New Year's Eve 2018, then you go to meet him in March, and I'm guessing you had to go back home eventually to Corpus Christi. And so did you get together after that, every month, every couple months? How did that all work out?
Yeah, so he had a job. He was working about, I think it was 14 days on, 7 days off. And he would come here on one of his weeks off, and then he would, go to work, and then he'd go home. So he was kind of alternating between here and home during that time.
Okay. And how was it? How was it? It was great?
It was great. We had a lot of fun. He had never, I think he'd come down here when we were with family. Every time he came, we would go fishing. He would take my boys out, go fishing. We had a blast together.
Okay, cool. All right. So he was coming down there periodically, depending on his work schedule. And then what was the final? What kind of moved it to the fact that he was going to move to Corpus Christi, Texas, and move in with you and your children and others?
So we had talked about him moving here. I didn't really know he was actually going to move here. He kind of just showed up at my doorstep on July 5th and kind of just knocked at the door probably around 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And from there, he just kind of stuck around.
You didn't
it was very unexpected.
All right, so seriously, you didn't know he was coming?
I had no idea that he was coming. He was at work, and I guess something had happened at work, and he was supposed to come to Corpus on his days off in that time frame, and something ended up happening, and he ended up leaving work earlier than normal, and he left his phone there, so he didn't call me, he didn't say anything, and he just showed up at my door.
How did you feel about that?
I was excited.
Were you? Okay.
And I was very scared at the same time.
Okay.
It was very unexpected.
Had you two ever talked about him moving to Corpus Christi?
We did. We did talk about it. He was kind of unsure. He had just, he was trying to make a relationship with his family. He was hanging out with his daughter a lot. So, it wasn't a sure thing.
Mm-hmm. So he essentially quit the work that he was doing wherever he was?
Correct.
Okay. So he just showed up. Did he have anything with him? Did he have a vehicle, or how did he get there? How much clothes did he bring? How many suitcases? What was the total story?
So he was just coming from work. So he had all of his work stuff, and he had a suitcase full of clothes that he would have, taken to the rig with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was driving his car, so he drove his car down.
Okay. And so he just moved in, and maybe you can tell the listeners who else was living with you at that time. Of course, this is just a little over a year ago. Who was living under your roof at the same time?
So it was me and my boys. I have 4 boys, and at the time I was also raising my niece.
Okay. So you already had 5, you and 5 kids there, so that makes 6, and then he would make 7.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
That's a lot of people under one roof.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Very much.
All right, and how did the kids? I know the variety of ages. How did the kids in general feel about him moving in?
The kids loved him. They had a lot of fun with him. He would do things with them. He was just really fun to be around. So they really loved him.
Okay. Now, what did he do for work once he moved in with you? What was he doing for money? What kind of job did he get? How did he get a job?
So when he first moved here, he didn't have any plans for a job. I'm not sure exactly what had happened. I wasn't going to be able to go back. Mm-hmm. So he was looking for work during that time. And my kids were doing a summer job with their dad, and they were working on a project that needed to be completed within so many days, and they needed help. And so Harvey, which was the boss and the owner of the company, had asked Brad if he wanted to help and finish that project for some money, and he accepted, and eventually I think the next day or two.
All right, so he started working for Harvey. Is this kind of like construction or something like that?
It was, home remodeling.
Okay. Now, just to be clear, though, Brad was going to be working, is this your ex-husband?
We were never married.
Or ex-boyfriend?
So my ex.
Okay.
Yeah.
And father of your children?
Yes.
All right, and I have to ask, how did those two get along? Were there any concerns that you had about this? Did Brad voice any concerns about? That is kind of an unusual situation, so I have to ask.
It's a very unusual situation. They did get along, but I know that there was things that were probably said about me at work, and I know Brad had expressed the feelings. He didn't really like, hearing him talk anything about me. But I think they tried to keep that to the side and be professional, and for the most.
Is this a situation, once again, I know you weren't doing the job, but the way you understand it, were they working like side by side, or did they just happen to work for the same employer and working on different jobs, or did they work side by side?
So they were pretty much working side by side.
Wow. Okay. All right. And if you can say, I realize that, and his name is Abe. We'll not use his last name, but his first name is Abe. Did Brad ever say anything to you about him? If you can say. Any problems with him? Anything like that?
No, he never really said too much. I just know that he was jealous. I don't exactly know what conversations they had at work, but I do know that he expressed some jealousy. He would think that I was going to go back to Abe, so...
Okay. All right, so that did kind of pop up. Maybe it's just, maybe that makes sense, being that they're working together, and who knows what Abe was saying. But never got into any fights at work. I guess I'll just ask you straight out. Never got any fights at work, anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to this, and we'll come back to that. Now, on top of that, he moves in, I guess the way you explain it, somewhat unexpectedly. And then eventually his daughter came to live with you as well. In fact, the day of his disappearance, but I don't want to quite get to that yet. When did that conversation start that she may move to Corpus Christi, Texas, and already live in a house that has 7 people in it?
She called Brad on August 16th.
Okay.
And talked to him about some problems that she was having back at home and wanted to come and live with him.
Okay. And if this was August 16th, he disappeared on the August 18th, then am I to take for granted that you two did not, I'm guessing you did have a conversation about it, but it seems like this all happened very quickly.
It happened very quickly. He came home from work and we talked about it, and I told him, you know, if that's what he wanted and if that's what needed to be done, then I was, you know, then that's what had to be done.
Okay. All right. So on August 16th, she calls Brad, and then on the 18th, you two went to go pick her up, and once again, we'll get to that in a moment. Did any of your children know Kaylee before she came to live with you?
No, none of us knew Kaylee. I had never even met Kaylee.
Oh, you had never even met her. Okay. All right, so we're going to have another child underneath the roof there, and kind of unexpected, just like Brad showing up. Now, let's talk about this. He had this $5,000 check that we talked about before. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about that? Where did it come from and why?
So he had heard from a friend about the unclaimed funds that you can go in and search your name. And so they had to put his name in, and it popped up. And he had bought some property a long time ago, and it turned out, I guess he just had some unclaimed funds from that, and it equaled out to be $5,000.
Wow. From something. Do you know specifically what it was? You know, sometimes I think like
I think he had owned the mineral rights to the land.
Oh. Okay.
And so I'm assuming that's where that money was adding before he lost the land.
Okay. And did he get that check? Did he ever cash it?
He did not receive that. No, he did not check. The check was actually sent to his grandparents' house. He had gone missing, you know, and it came in a couple days later. Okay.
So he never did receive that check. He went missing first. All right. Something I did not put on our outline, I think something else we have to talk about, is the car that he was driving. You say he moved to Corpus Christi with a vehicle, but at the time, is that the vehicle that he disappeared in? And maybe we need to talk about that a little bit. Or is it a different vehicle?
No, the car that he came to Corpus is the car that he went, he was driving when he became missing.
Okay, and that was a vehicle that is, I understand that a family member had given to him, an uncle or someone?
His uncle, yes.
Okay. Can you explain the trouble that Brad was having with this vehicle?
I'm not sure if it was the battery or the alternator, but, you know, sometimes he would be driving it and it would just completely die, and we'd have to, get out and charge the battery for it to start.
Mm-hmm.
He was having a lot of problems with either the battery or maybe the alternator was starting to go out. I'm not sure which one.
Okay. And he dealt with that from him getting there in July until the day he disappeared, in a month and a half?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Never got it fixed, never got it looked at?
No.
Okay.
He didn't.
Okay. And my understanding, though, is you happen to have some sort of battery charger that you already owned that you just gave him, and did he put it in the car just in case he had any problems, or is that how it worked out?
Yeah, so I had a portable battery charger, and sometimes he would carry it around with him just in case something had happened, but not too often. Most of the time it would stay in the house, but so.
Okay. If you can say, I realize you weren't the one, because this is going to play a factor in his disappearance, certainly. But the way you remember it, how many times would you say that he had to use your charger over the course of the roughly month and a half that he was there? Couple times?
Yeah, 3, 4, 5 times.
Okay.
Most of the time we just jumped it with
With your car.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so maybe let's say almost once a week then. If he was there a month and a half, that's 6 weeks. 4 or 5 times, that's almost once a week.
Right, and a lot of times, so I also had a second vehicle. So I had a truck and I had a Suburban. So there for a little while he was driving my Suburban around. So he didn't drive his car around it that much.
Okay. All right, so he has this car, has a mechanical problem with it. It does sound like an alternator battery / problem to me as well, Ashley, so that makes a lot of sense. And so he had that issue, but he was going to work. He was working with your ex-boyfriend. He was working with this guy, Harvey, and they'll play a role a little later. Overall, any concerns that you saw in those weeks before he disappeared? Any concerns about Brad at all? And Misty and I did talk about his addiction. Did you see anything like that in those 6 weeks that he was living with you?
The only thing that really concerned me was he was kind of starting to drink a little too much.
So alcohol then?
Yes.
Okay. What was his choice? Any alcohol, beer, or what was it?
Beer, Shiner Bock.
Shiner Bock beer. Okay. And did you ever talk to him about that? Did he seem concerned about it?
So yeah, we talked about it a couple times. There was a couple nights where he, really went overboard, and I have too many kids around, and I don't really drink that much, so it was a problem for me. And we did talk about it a couple times.
Okay. And how was he? Was he open-minded on that?
Well, instead of getting really drunk, he would just drink maybe 1 or 2 beers. He tried to stop or slow down or not drink as much. But eventually it was just becoming an everyday thing. Okay.
Would you, in your opinion, I know we're not experts here, would you say that he might have had a drinking problem?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's going on, and let's move up now to August 18th. 2019. Now, this is the day he disappeared, but this is also the day that you and Brad went to go get Kaylee, his daughter. Is that correct?
So we actually left on the 17th to go pick up his daughter.
Okay. And so you left on the 17th, came back on the 18th then?
Yes.
All right. Why don't you just give a short explanation on how that went? What was Brad saying while you were driving there? Was he nervous? What was his demeanor?
He was excited, and he was also scared. This was going to be the first time for him to be able to take care of his daughter by himself. So he was really nervous. He was scared about being he didn't want to do anything wrong. So he expressed, how he was scared, but he was also very excited. He was excited to be able to be a father and He wanted her to go to school and wanted to go to her basketball games. And,
Right.
So he was excited.
Okay. And in addition, I mean, you have 4 children of your own. I'm sure you could have given Brad some pointers, right? With your experience. So he has you to support him, whenever it was going to happen there. So that sounds good to me, but I can understand him being nervous. And how was that? You go pick Kaylee up, and how was the drive back to Corpus Christi?
It was really good. We laughed the entire way back. We had a great time. So after we picked her up, we actually went to his mom's house and stayed the night. And we got up with her, and we ate breakfast. And he grabbed from there. We went to his grandma's house, and we hung out with her for an hour or so. And I mean, it was just a really good day. We had a great trip back. There was no problems.
Okay. And what time approximately do you get back to your home in Corpus Christi?
We got back around 7:30, I want to say.
7:30 in the evening.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay. Why don't you now explain what goes on from there? You get back, and my understanding is one of your sons want to go play tennis. So why don't you just start there and map out the way you remember the rest of that evening?
So when we got home, we went inside. We brought all of our stuff in. He introduced Kaylee to all the boys and to my niece Aubrey. He showed her around, and he pretty much immediately went to the bathroom after that. I didn't really pay too close attention because I was talking to my boys. I had been gone all weekend, so I was talking to them, asking how everything was going and what they did over the weekend. And then I started talking to my son. He had a tournament coming up, so he wanted to go and practice tennis. So I, after being in the car for 2 days straight like that, I was just like, well, I could go out and get some fresh air and kind of run off some energy.
Yeah.
And I had told Brad, hey, I'm going to leave. I just knocked on the door. He was still in the bathroom. And I let him know that I was going to go play tennis with my son, that I would be back. He asked me if I would take Kaylee with me. I told him I would ask her, but, I don't think she wants to. He said, please take my daughter with me or with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was kind of weird. But I went in there and I asked her if she wanted to go. And I told her that, her dad asked me to take her. And she said no, that she wanted to stay there and hang out with her dad. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so then me and my son, we left and went and played tennis.
Okay. And how long would you say Brad was in the bathroom before you left?
Oh, man. Seemed like he was in there for 30, 40 minutes before I left.
Wow. Was he having issues, or did you ask him, what's the deal, Brad? Did you do that, or what did he say? Any explanation?
No, I didn't really ask him what he was in there doing. I didn't know if he was having stomach problems or anything like that, so I just didn't ask. And, I was just kind of paying attention more, I guess, to my boys than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just told him I'm going to go play tennis, and that's...
Okay.
That was pretty much it.
Okay, and he'd lived with you for 6 weeks. Had he ever done that before?
No, not be in the bathroom that long.
Yeah.
And he had also lit up, I don't smoke in my house, but he had lit up a cigarette in the bathroom, and I thought that was kind of weird, but, I wasn't trying to get into anything at that moment in time, so I didn't say anything.
All right, so not only was he in the bathroom that long, but he lit up a cigarette for the first time ever in your house on that same night?
Yes.
Okay, was he a smoker?
Yes, he was.
Okay. All right, so he's in there. So you don't even see him before you leave with one of your sons. He doesn't come out of the bathroom before you leave.
No.
Okay. So then how long are you gone with your son?
I am gone for over an hour.
Okay.
Probably close to an hour and a half.
Okay. Now, when you left, were you under the idea that Brad was going to be going anywhere, that he was going to be going with Kaylee? Your niece Aubrey, who's also living with you, were you under the belief that they were going to be going anywhere while you were gone?
I had no idea.
Okay. So you come back, and what do you find out?
When I pull up, I noticed that Brad's car was gone, and Kaylee was sitting on the front porch. And I had asked her, where they were, and she said she didn't really know, something about getting water, but she said that he pretty much left right after I did. So, and I was like, well, that's where I was fixing to go and call him, but as I was fixing him, Harvey pulled up into the yard to bring one of my sons home from his house. Okay. And shortly after Harvey pulled up, Brad pulled in.
All right, so Brad, though, we should be clear, Brad did not leave alone. He left with Aubrey.
Yes, he left with Aubrey.
Okay, so you two leave, just so I can go through this with the listeners. You and your son go to play tennis. Then what Kaylee said is that right after you left, Brad and Aubrey left, and you didn't know that was going to happen. Then when you get back later, Brad and Aubrey aren't there. Kaylee's there. Then you're about to call Brad. His boss shows up, Harvey, who we've already talked about, and then shortly after that, Brad shows up by himself.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And did you happen to ask Brad what he was doing, where he went, why did he leave, where he went, anything like that?
No, because Harvey was there, and he pulled the water out of the car, and he took the water inside, and then he got he got Kaylee, and introduced Kaylee to Harvey.
Okay.
And then he gave Harvey his new phone number. He had gotten a new phone that day.
Okay.
And then from there, they talked about what time they were going to meet in the morning for work, and he went inside.
Brad went inside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This phone, was this the phone that Harvey gave him, or did Brad get that phone some other way?
This was the phone that Harvey had given him, and then his mom had gotten him a SIM card.
Oh, okay. All right. So so Harvey gave him a phone, but it was up to Brad to get his own cell phone service, or whatever you'd call it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you got a lot of people there. It sounds to me, Ashley. Aubrey's not there. She's gone. We'll get to that and where she went as far as all that. But, now you have your four sons. You have Kaylee. You have Brad. You have Hardy. You have yourself. That's a lot of things going on there. And this would have been being that, you were going. This must have been like 9 at night or something, right? It would have been dark out.
Yeah, it was dark.
It was dark. Okay. All right, so we have this going on, but Aubrey is not there. Do you ever find out where Aubrey went that night? But at that time, I know you know now, but at that time, did you know where Aubrey was?
At the very moment, I did not. So after Brad went inside, I talked to Harvey for a minute, and then they ended up leaving, and so then it was just a few minutes. After Brad went in that he left. And so I went inside to talk to Brad.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't really saying anything to me. He was in my bedroom. He was just kind of flipping through my phone. He wasn't saying anything at all to me. And I just kind of, for probably about a good 20 or 30 minutes, we were in my room, and he was just flipping through my phone, not really talking to me. He was acting very strange.
He was flipping through your phone for 30 minutes?
Yeah, 20, 30 minutes or so. Going through my messages, my browser history, my Facebook.
I have to ask, was he usually like that, Ashley?
No, not like that. He's looked at my messages, but he was really going into my phone as if he was trying to find something.
And what were you saying to him?
I just, at that time, I kind of just asked him if he was high because of the way he was acting.
And was this also because he was in the bathroom for so long, an hour and a half before that?
it was. I had my suspicions, when I left. I kind of had my suspicions, and then it kind of all came together when I saw him in my bedroom, and he was really quiet and going through my phone the way he was going through it. It just kind of came together.
But you had never known him to do that before. What do you think he was looking for?
I do believe he was looking to see if I had been talking to Abe.
Your ex, the guy that he worked with. Okay. Can you think of any reason that he would have been? I'm not here to reveal your personal life, Ashley, but can you think of any reason that he would have been doing that is objective, or do you believe this was just his paranoia and possibly addiction on drugs talking?
I do believe it was just his paranoia. I think maybe he thought when Harvey showed up with my kid, I don't know, maybe in Brad's mind, he thought that Abe was also there, even though he didn't see him. But yeah, I think it would have something to do with his paranoia.
Okay. But he never accused you. He never vocally accused you of anything in those
No.
in however long that was, 40 minutes, half hour, 20 minutes, whatever it was. He never said to you, what he was doing, and he said, "I know you were with Abe," just as an example.
No, he never vocally said anything like that.
So it was just dead quiet that whole time?
It was just quiet.
Okay.
It was just really quiet.
Okay. And so you were just, once again, I'm sorry I have to ask this, but so you're just sitting there? Are you going out, are you talking to your sons, and then coming back inside, to see if he's still doing that, or?
No, I sat in the room with him the entire time.
Okay. To your knowledge, what is everybody else's house doing at the time? That would, of course, be your sons and Kaylee. What were they doing while this was going on?
I do believe they were outside on the front porch, and they were all talking.
Okay. Do you think that they had any idea what was going on inside?
No, I do not think they had any idea.
Okay. So how does this long period of silence end?
So I asked him if he was high, and a few minutes later, he just kind of looked at me, and he pulled a meth pipe out of his pocket, and he handed it to me.
Wow.
And we kind of sat in silence a little bit longer, just doing on my phone. I told him I was like, I really need to go and get these kids some food. They're hungry. We sat there for a little bit longer. I finally kind of got upset, and I just kind of, I smashed his pipe and broke it. And when I did that, he kind of put my phone down, and he went and got the broom and cleaned it up. And I just told him, I was like, I'm going to go get food for the kids. They're hungry. And he asked me, he said, well, can I go with you? And I was, yes, please come with me. So when I walked out, he had walked out before I did. I was getting my purse and everything. And when I came outside, he was sitting in the driver's side of my truck. And I told him that he was in no condition to drive, that I wasn't going to allow him to drive, that he would have to sit in the passenger side. Okay. And he got upset, and he got in his car. He got out of my truck. He went to his car and got in his car. And I got in my truck because at that point I was kind of already frustrated with him. Yeah. And so he pulled out, and I pulled out right behind him and went the same direction, except for we turned into two different places. I turned into Jack in a Box, and he turned in across the street at McDonald's. Okay. So how many of your kids go with you? None of them went with me. I went by myself. You went by yourself, and he went by himself. Yes. So you left your 4 kids and his daughter at your house, and those were the only people at the home. Yes, and let me just go back a little bit. Go ahead. As I was coming outside to go to my truck, Aubrey and her boyfriend, I saw them walking back to the house. Her boyfriend was staying with a friend that lived a block behind us, and they were walking that way. Okay. as we were leaving.
All right. So is that when you figured out, oh, there's Aubrey?
Yes.
Okay. So I know you came home and she wasn't there, and it was I guess you eventually did find out that it was Brad and Aubrey who left together while you were going to play tennis.
Yes.
All right. Okay. And we'll get into some other things regarding that in a bit. So you're going down the street, and her boyfriend's name is Darian. They're walking up seemingly toward your house.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So you go to, my notes have it, Jack in the Box. Brad goes to McDonald's, and the listeners should know that I will be doing a YouTube video explaining these locations, diagramming this for everybody, because we have a lot of different locations in a particular disappearance. And they're like right across from each other or right next to each other, right?
Yes, Aubrey and Derek, or
the Jack in the Box and the McDonald's. How close are they?
Yes, they were across the street from each other.
Okay, and explain to the listeners what you saw, Brad, when he went to McDonald's. What you saw.
I just saw him pull in. I didn't.
Mhm.
I didn't really. That's all I saw. I saw him pull in, go towards the drive-in, the drive-through area.
Okay. And is that the last time you saw him?
That is the last time I saw him.
Okay. So he's driving into the drive-through. Did you go through the drive-through of the Jack in the Box, or did you go inside? How long would you say you were gone before you went back home?
I was probably gone for maybe 30
minutes.
There was a few cars in front of me. McDonald's looked pretty empty. I think he pretty much went right in and right out.
Okay.
There was a few cars in front of me, and I had ordered a lot of tacos, so it took a little bit.
Well, you do have you have at least your 4 sons there, so I completely understand that. Actually, I'm sure you run into that a lot. Okay. So were you thinking when you saw him go to McDonald's and you went to Jack in the Box, were you thinking that when you went home that Brad would be there?
I did think he would be home. I just assumed that he probably got whatever he wanted and that he would go back home.
Okay.
When I got home, he was not there.
All right. So when you get home and he's not there, what do you think? Did you think maybe he did, being it did take you 20 minutes, 25 minutes, or half hour to do this run, were you thinking maybe he did come back home and left again, but what did the kids tell you?
Well, I asked if Brad had stopped back by, and they all said no, and Kaylee was asking where her dad was, and I didn't know.
Okay.
And so everyone just started eating, and then we sat outside for a while, and we just kind of waited to see if you would come back, and we were calling him, and I think they had sent him a couple text messages maybe.
Okay. Did he? So when you and maybe Kaylee were trying to call him, was it going straight to voicemail or was it ringing? Do you remember?
I want to say that it was ringing, but he was sending it, like he was forwarding the calls.
What does that mean? Maybe you can explain that a little bit better.
Sometimes if you call somebody and it rings a couple times and they push, end,
Okay.
like they forward, like they say, and then it would just go straight to voicemail.
Okay. So
Kaylee did say that she called her dad, or he called her, one or the other. I'm not sure which one. I don't remember. But she was talking to him. He was breaking up a lot. She could barely understand him. And then the phone, I guess, disconnected.
So when was this? After you got back from Jack in the Box, Kaylee did reach him?
Yes. So this was shortly after it was either right before I got home or during the time that I was in the house, getting the kids taken care of.
Yeah, giving food out, handing it out. Okay, so Kaylee did reach him on her phone, and did she happen to say what that conversation was, or you said it was so broken up?
Yeah, she said that it was broken up and she couldn't understand what he was saying, and then the phone disconnected.
Okay. And people were trying to text him as well. Did he ever return any of those texts?
No.
Okay.
So,
And being that you live in the Corpus Christi area, do you know of any particular area around there where there is bad phone reception?
no, I
No.
don't.
Okay. Because I kind of know this being in the Tampa area. Like when I drive from where I live and take one of the causeways over to Tampa, there's like right in that middle area there where a phone always seems to go out because you're so far out into the water on this causeway that cell phones towers on either side can't reach you. That is an example of, I guess, what I mean. Nothing that comes to mind in the area that you live in, Corpus Christi, where you get bad phone reception.
No, not really.
Okay. All right.
Not unless you're actually
Out in the
I have a little bit of, but as far as driving out to the island or anything like that, no, I've never really experienced any bad reception.
Okay. Now, when you get home, are Aubrey and you said that you saw them walking to your house? Were they there when you got there?
Aubrey was there when I got back, but Darian was not.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. And so, of course, Brad never comes home the rest of the night. You're trying to call him. He's not answering. He's not texting back. What's going through your head at that point?
Well, me knowing that he was high, I just assumed, he was out, driving around or listening to music or, getting into stuff he probably shouldn't be getting into. I even probably thought, for a moment I thought maybe he went to the bar, but that's what was going through my mind.
Okay. And once again, he's in his car, the car that has this battery/alternator issue. And did he have your charger with him?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the first time? Once again, he's living with you for 6 weeks. Is this the first time he ever behaved like this?
No, not like this. He'd never. Yes, this was the first time.
First time. Never went out all night, never telling you where he was going, nothing like that.
No.
Okay.
That was the first.
All right. So we go through that night, that day, that evening, that night of August 18th. It turns into August 19th. And what do you do the next day? I'm guessing he's still trying to, what are you thinking? He's not around the next day. What do you do that next day?
I'm a little concerned, but at the same time, I feel like, Brad, when he gets high, he doesn't, he's not going to want to be around his family, especially not going to want to be around his daughter for her to see him like that. So I'm still kind of assuming that he's just, wherever he's at, doing whatever he's doing. I am concerned because I didn't think he would do that with his daughter just coming into town. But I had to go to work. And so I have to come to work, and I just kind of stayed in contact with Kaylee throughout the day to see if he had showed up or, called.
Okay. I should ask you this, being that he did hand you that crack pipe the evening before, were you even aware that he would even know where to get a drug like that in that area, where he would even go to get something like that?
Sure. I mean, in Flower Bluff, it's not hard, especially in the neighborhood that I was living in. It's not hard to go up to pretty much anyone that's walking down the street and ask for, some drugs.
Okay. So it wouldn't have been difficult for him?
No, not at all.
Okay. So you go through that next day, August 19th. Of course, nobody hears from him. And when do you finally... you're trying to call him, text him. That's not. Of course, there's no success there. And what was the final straw when you finally decided, maybe I got to talk to the police, maybe I got to let Brad's family know? What was the final straw?
I think I told Karen. Well, I told Karen the same day. that it happened just because I had her daughter or his daughter with me,
Mm-hmm.
who was, completely freaking out that her dad wasn't there. And we started, the further the day went on, it was like, I don't know what's going on. I would have assumed he would have showed back up. So I did reach out to Karen to let her know that Brad never, told her what happened. Brad had never come back. He still wasn't home. And we just kind of kept trying to get his phone.
And I should note for the record, Karen is Brad's mother, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right.
Yes.
Karen is Brad's mother. Okay. And so go through that next day. You get him maybe into the 20th. Is that when you decided, to get the police involved and, really let everybody know something's going on, or what?
So, no, I still did not call the police at this time. We were just still out driving around and looking for his car, looking for him. I was going to all of his fishing spots, driving up and down the beach. I still did not call the cops at this time.
Okay. And being that you bring up fishing, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, is that what you believed that he went and did, that he was doing, or was that just a guess among many guesses?
It was just a guess.
Just a guess.
It was just kind of the hope that he would, that I would be able to find him at one of his fishing spots.
Okay. Now, being that you had to go to work the next day, August 19th, was he supposed to go to work for Harvey, work with Abe that next day?
Yes, they were supposed to meet at this house at, I believe, 8 in the morning. And Harvey called me around lunchtime and asked me where Brad was.
So he hadn't heard from Brad either?
No.
Okay. All right, so Brad goes to McDonald's. You were seemingly the last person to see him while you're at Jack in the Box. Doesn't show up for work the next day. It seems like Kaylee reached him. But the phone reception, as to hear her explain it, wasn't that good. Doesn't respond to any texts or calls through the 19th into the 20th. And what date is it when you finally let the police know?
So I called the police department on the 21st. And the lady who picked up, I had talked to her and told her that the police officer to come out to file a missing person report. And the lady on the phone asked me, she was suggesting that, that he just left, me, I guess because I'm a girlfriend.
Huh. That's nice.
So she was like, are you sure he didn't, get a few of his things and just leave you? And I tried to explain to her that his daughter had just moved here with him, and I don't think that he would do that. And she kind of frustrated me, and I started, really breaking up at this point. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to give him one more night, and I'll call back tomorrow if he doesn't show back up or if no one hears from him. And so no one, no one contacted him that day. So on the 22nd, I decided to call again to the police department. And when the lady answered there, it was a completely different lady. She asked me why I waited so long to call and file him as a missing person. But we did have the officer come out, and this was on the 22nd. An officer came to my work, and I filed him missing, and they put a bolo out on his car on the 22nd. Okay.
So the last time you saw him, though, was on the night of the 18th, and so we're talking like 1, 2, 3, 4 days later.
Yes.
Okay.
I now turn the conversation back to Misty.
So how and when did your family, Misty, find out that Brad did not come home that night? He allegedly went fishing, did not come home. How did you find out? What did you think? What were you and the rest of your family saying?
Let's see. I know how my mother found out. Kaylee called her the very next morning and said my dad did not come home. He went fishing last night. He did not come home, and I don't know where he is. We keep calling him and texting him. And then at that time in my life, some things were going on where my husband had to be gone for a bit due to PTSD and needing some treatment for that. So my mom was calling to check in with me that very same day, the 19th. And she was calling, and we were speaking, about me and how I was going to be okay and all this. And then I had asked about them making it down there, and then she broke down and told me she didn't know what happened, but that Brad didn't come home, and she doesn't know what to do, and they're out looking for him. So that's how I found out.
What was your initial reaction? Of course, you weren't there. I don't even know, when was the last time you spoke to Brad before he disappeared? Do you even remember?
Yeah, I believe it was the 4th of July. So we had texted back and forth about happy 4th and love you and miss you and all that stuff, just on Messenger.
On Messenger. Okay. So you hadn't talked to him close to when he disappeared, but did you have any knee-jerk reaction when you found out about this?
Yeah, I was completely surprised and shocked. I couldn't believe it, and I immediately thought something was wrong. And that's the first thing I told her is something's wrong. Why on earth would he just go get Kaylee? Why would he? Here, what? I couldn't believe it. And I immediately expressed my concern, and then at the same time, my husband had called. And so we had gotten off the phone, and I told her I'd talk to her later, and we didn't get the chance until the next day to talk about it again, and that's when my concern grew stronger that they needed to contact the police immediately.
Okay. And so what you were told, what Kaylee said, was that her dad went fishing. Of course, Kaylee was there, living in the house then. She gets there the same day her dad disappears. She says that her dad went fishing and didn't come home.
Yes.
That was the story. Okay. And at any point, did you talk to Ashley in after finding out, one-on-one conversation over the phone?
Yes, I did. I believe it was day 2 or day 3. This is all very blurry only because I was not there, and I had so much going on in my life with my kids starting school and my husband leaving. I was a literal mess at the moment. But I know I immediately, day 2, day 3, was talking with her, called her on the phone. We spoke for hours.
Wow.
So,
do you remember?
The very next, and then every day after that, I believe, for almost 6 months, we were back and forth almost every single day via either phone or text or messaging because she was out there searching, and I couldn't be there, but I wanted to be there, so I would call her constantly with doing now, okay, you're out there, send me videos, send me pictures, and she did. So.
Do you remember, at least early on, if she ever expressed a particular opinion to you, a theory as to what happened to Brad?
Yeah, she was concerned, especially about with Kaylee being there, but she wondered if he had just left. Honestly, I think that was a little bit of self-esteem, feeling like maybe he just left because things were getting crazy and I wasn't doing a good enough job or I wasn't good enough, but the reason. And I don't believe he just left, so.
Okay. So she did give you a theory, and the theory was maybe he just took off. Maybe it was because of the pressure, maybe of Kaylee being there, or something else.
Yeah.
Okay. And I, of course, asked Ashley the same question. Okay. So you never actually did go to Corpus Christi for these searches or anything else. Did anybody in your family go to Corpus Christi?
I first there. Of course, it was the several months later, but my dad and my husband and I actually go in there and search. And we spent 3 days down there trying to go through that brush and bramble in the back
where the car was
behind
found.
the mobile home RV park.
Yeah, where the car was found.
Yes, where the car was found. We were back there for 3 days in terrible heat with hella mosquitoes.
Yeah.
And not even standing on land most of the time. It's very, very, very dense back there.
Yeah.
So when you're walking through that, your feet were not actually touching the ground. You're just standing on more brush and bramble and grass. It was, but prior to that, my dad had gone down. My mother, my grandmother, my sister, Kaylee, Brad's daughter, had gone down. My parents had been down a few times. And Texas EquiSearch had gone down, and when they were there, my family was there for that as well.
Okay. But just in the, maybe let's just try to keep it to this. Maybe in the first week, let's say first week, 2 weeks, did anybody in your family go down?
My sister and my grandma went down to search.
Okay. And what were they telling you while they were down there, being that you weren't there? What were they personally telling you about their thoughts, looking around, talking to Ashley? What thoughts and theories were they sending back to you where you were?
Well, they were completely overwhelmed in the sense that they'd never done anything like this before. And everybody out there kind of looked like Brad, skinny, kind of muscular, tattoos, shirt off, walking around. So it was a lot for them. Literally, dozens of times they would turn around and follow someone thinking that they had seen him. That there were just so many that, ball cap, just same kind of look, same kind of vibe, a beach vibe. And that was totally him. So They really were very overwhelmed. They did the best they could, the best anybody could. They were out there where the car was. They walked around the mobile home park. I know my sister did an extensive search of the mobile home park, looking, talking with people, reaching out to people, just trying to find any clues, any answers whatsoever.
Okay. And although there's people, like you said, guys that are similar, no believable sightings of Brad.
No, we even had a few photos.
Okay.
Photos that were sent in, but none of them were ever him.
Okay. Did your family get to speak to the police while they were down there?
I believe my mother did, yes.
Okay. Do you know? If you don't know, that's fine. But I got to ask: Do you know if the police ever offered up their own theory as to what could have happened to Brad?
I believe I was told by Ashley that he's a 30-something-year-old man, and he probably just wandered off, and he'll come back. Okay.
Well, you mentioned EquiSearch, Texas EquiSearch, within the last few moments. Do you remember when they came in and did searching around there? How long after he disappeared?
Okay. On October 2nd, Texas EquiSearch came out to Corpus for Bradley. Okay.
And so
okay?
All right, yeah. And so like a month and a half later.
Yes.
Okay. And they didn't find any signs of Brad. Of course, we know the variety of things that are missing besides him, but none of that popped up.
No, and they searched 5 areas around where the car was found. They searched with their ATVs, both sonars, and had boots on the ground. But they did not find any of the stuff missing or Bradley. Okay.
And you did have a story about, was it your father who had a run-in with a homeless person in the area where the car was? Do I remember that correctly?
Yes. When my dad did his own search, he wanted to go down and do it by himself. He went out there, and he was down by a pier that is right near where car went missing. There's a pier that I don't think is, or back then was accessible public anymore, in the sense the pier was closed. But when he was walking back that direction, he was approached by several homeless men that were living in that area, and they specifically told him, "Do not come back here. Your son's not back here."
Okay.
He had walked up asking, they said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm looking for my son." And they said, "Your son's not back here. Don't come back here."
Huh. Did your father feel like the guy could have been violent, or what?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so your dad was like, okay, got to be careful around this guy.
And my dad's not scared. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
He's not. He is careful. He's very careful. He's not going to put himself in a bad situation. He knew to back out.
Okay. Now, you said you went down many months later, but in that time between them going down originally very quickly after Brad disappeared and then you going down later, what were the conversations that you all had amongst yourselves, about any theories about what could happen to Brad? And I just have to ask, at any point, did you entertain the idea that foul play could be involved?
Actually, that's from the beginning. Just because my mom and my brother are so close, and Bradley's so close with Kaylee, and my mother talked every day. So it was just very, very strange to me. I could not understand. I couldn't fathom a world where my brother didn't call and bug my mom about something. That's not normal. He talked to her every day. It's not normal. So I immediately felt something was wrong. And definitely, but, when we come to the foul play thing, I definitely feel that way. But I honestly, because there have been no clues, have no idea what could have happened.
Right. Well, we're open to all sorts of ideas. I'm just wondering if that particular one did pop up during all of your conversation. I'm sure you talked about a variety of scenarios. But I'm just wondering if a foul play center, I'm not going to name any names or any suspects or, anything like that. I'm just saying a foul play scenario, did it pop into all of your minds?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Ashley now comes back into the interview.
Okay, Ashley, welcome back into this interview. We've already talked about Brad's car. He got it from an uncle. And however, there were some issues with it, a battery or alternator problem. Luckily, you had some sort of battery charger that Brad could carry in the car in case he had any issues. You talked about how you talked to the police on the 22nd on regarding Brad being missing along with the vehicle on a bolo, be on the lookout for. And the car was eventually found. Who found it and when?
The car I found and towed on the 23rd. So when I called the police officer on the 22nd, they put the bolo out on the car, and the officer told me to wait a day or two before actually going to the police department to see if they could find his car anywhere first. And he had also called the impound yard at that time. He had called the morgue to see if there was any unidentified bodies there.
Yeah.
And so he just told me to wait a day to make sure to see if the car had been found. So I waited, and on Saturday, I went to the police department to file the actual missing person report. I did not know that the police department was closed on a Saturday for stuff like that. And so the police department opened. So Monday morning was when the actual police report was made on the 26th, officially with the police department.
Okay. But you found out, though, that the car was found on the 23rd.
Right. So on the 28th, Detective Alvarado gave me a call. He was the assigned detective. That's when they finally got back with me. And during that time, he did say that the car had been impounded on the 23rd, and So I found out on the 28th that his car
Wow.
was towed away on the 23rd.
So 10 days after he disappeared is when you found out that his vehicle had actually been found 5 days after his disappearance.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So it was found and towed away on the 23rd. Who found it? Do you know?
I don't know who found it. I guess residents of the place that it was found had reported the car had been sitting there.
All right, had been sitting there for a few days.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is you probably had to be a little shocked when you found out where it was found. Where was it found?
It was found down the end of Stingray Road inside of in a village RV park. There's a dirt road that leads down to the water.
And that's where it was found.
Yes.
And how far would you say this is from your house? Not far, right?
No, not far. A mile away.
Very, very close. And it was found near the water's edge?
Yes.
Okay, so you'd already talked about him possibly going fishing, and I just have to ask, when you thought up going to look at these variety of places that Brad had been known to fish once he moved to be with you, where his car was found, what was one of the locations? Was that a location where he was known to fish?
No, I've never even heard of that place.
All right, so you live in the area and you've never even known that place to exist?
No.
And you've never known Brad to fish there?
No.
Okay. All right, so they tow the car on the 23rd, and then on the 28th is when you find out about all of this. Do they explain to you at the time as to the state of the vehicle, anything like that? What do they tell you about the state of the vehicle when it was found on the 23rd?
The detective said that it was just parked down by the water, and he said that all the doors were locked, and he said that the hood of the car was up.
The hood was up. Okay. And I've been told that it wasn't pointed toward the water. It had been backed in. Is that correct? Is that what they told you?
I'm not really aware of that. I was never told how the car was parked. Okay. I never really asked that question. I think I found out later by his mom, who asked that question, how the car was parked.
Okay. So the car was just sitting there. It's locked, but the hood is up. When you got to look in the car, if you did, anything unusual, anything missing? Frank, I just have to ask this. Any signs of violence, anything like that?
When we initially got to the car, there was nothing unusual about the car. And it didn't look like any signs of foul play or anything.
Okay.
Everything was still in the car, so no.
Okay.
Nothing unusual.
All right. But your charger was missing, correct?
Yes. So, yes, that was missing.
That was missing. So we knew that he knew the car had a problem. You'd give him that charger to ride around with. And the charger that's yours, it was not just missing at the time, but it's missing till this day, right? We're doing this interview on October 3rd, 2020. It's still missing.
Still missing, yes.
Okay. All right. And so it was right down the street, presumably the whole time, but we can't be sure. The hood was up. Could make it, I suppose somebody might theorize that maybe he was trying to jump start it and was unsuccessful doing so. Besides Brad being missing, what about his wallet, his phone, any other items missing besides him and the charger?
The charger, he had a couple knives that were missing that he usually keeps on it or in his car. His wallet, his keys, everything. None of those items were ever found.
Okay. Was there any fishing equipment in the car?
Yes, his fishing poles were in the trunk of his car.
Okay. Did it look like, in your opinion, did it actually look like if we're to believe that he went to that spot that night, something happened, did it look like he fished that night?
It did not appear to be, no, it did not look like he was fishing that night.
Okay. All right, so this location, Stingray Lane, once again, at the back end of an RV park. Were there any searches done in that area eventually, given that the car was found there? Any searches done?
Yes, so after I found out where his car was found, me and a couple of my kids and my niece and her boyfriend Darian, we all went to that place and we walked around the entire Bayline area. We walked around the shrub areas. We didn't go inside the shrubby areas because it's really, really big, but we walked that entire area, all up and down the road area, all down by the water in both directions. And we never found anything.
Nothing that could be connected to Brad?
Nothing.
Okay. Did you encounter any suspicious people while doing this?
No, not in that area.
No, not in that area. Did you or anybody else in this search happen to talk to anybody who lived in any of the trailers in the RV park?
Yes, I talked to. There's a house that sits right there where the road begins. Then there was a lady outside, and I had talked to her and asked her if she had seen a guy or if she had known anything about if she had just seen him walking or anyone walking that night, and she had said no.
Okay. Could she or anybody else give you an idea of if that area where his car was found was a popular place to search or to fish or anything like that?
Yes, we were told that people do ride their bikes. There's a no trespassing sign. Well, there's a sign that says no cars allowed. So people who usually go down there, they're on a bicycle or they're walking down there, and they go and wade in the water fishing.
Okay. So people do go fishing down there?
Yes.
Okay. Did Texas EquuSearch at one point come in and do a search on their own?
Yes. They came, I believe it was October 2nd when they came.
So like a month and a half later, they have pretty good reputation. Would you say, from your estimation, that they were pretty thorough?
Yes, I think they were very thorough. They searched within, I think it was a 4-mile radius, all around that area.
Okay.
They searched.
Okay. Did any person in that group ever give you a theory? We don't talk theories on the program, but if somebody in a position like a police officer, somebody like that is going to offer a theory, we'll talk about it. But did anybody at Texas EquuSearch ever give their opinion on what might have happened to Brad?
Tim Miller, he had stated the fact that he thought it was possible that his car was put there by someone other than Brad.
Planted there, so staged is another word.
Yes.
Staged there by somebody. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's interesting. Okay. Talking to Misty, we talked about during a search, somebody in her family, a male figure in her family, did encounter a homeless person, had a run-in with a homeless person around that area where the car was found. Do you know about this? Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have heard about this.
Okay.
Yes.
Any opinion on that? Surprised by that, or what do you think?
I am not surprised by that. There is a lot of homeless people in this particular area. A lot. And the place where he encountered this problem was not far from the place where his car was found. It was a little bit further, like more towards my house at Jester's Pier is where he encountered that problem.
Okay. All right. So, so your understanding is he encountered this person not near where the car was found, or what?
Well, so there's a Jester's Pier, and then if you go down a little bit further is where the Marina Village is. It's not really, you can't walk to get there. You would actually have to drive or walk around. You know, it's not like a straight shot. So it's not far from where Marina Village is.
Okay. But to your knowledge, do any homeless people hang out in the area where Brad's car was found?
Yes.
They do?
Yes. There was a lot of camps in the shrubs that we were told about. And you could see them. You know, there was a lot of homeless camps back in that area.
Okay, so you're saying I'll pick out a number. So within 100 yards, like a football field of where the vehicle was found, you could see homeless camps?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we know that Brad's missing. The phone that he got from Harvey is also missing. Have you ever been able to get the records? I don't know who would have had those records. They wouldn't, of course, be very long, being that Brad just got the phone. But have you ever seen those phone records?
I've never seen the phone records, but the phone was in his mom's name, so his mom has those phone records.
Okay. Do you have any idea who he called and who he texted? And maybe this is the most important question. To your knowledge, after you saw him at McDonald's, did he call or text anybody after that?
To my knowledge, no. The last person, to my knowledge, that showed on his phone report was the phone call that he had made to Harvey.
And when did he make that call? Earlier in the evening or what?
That was around 9:30 or so.
Okay, and that was before he went to McDonald's? Once again, the way you remember it?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm wondering if the call from Kaylee showed up on those records. Do you know? Being that she said that she talked to her father, but it was bad reception. Any knowledge on that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there's phone calls. I've never seen the phone records, so I couldn't tell you the last phone number that was on that phone record.
That's totally fine. Okay. So we're just not sure right at this second in doing this interview, and I'll try to get some clarification from Misty and Karen regarding that, so we can be a little more solid there. All right. So, but we do know that Kaylee said she did talk to her father, but it was rough reception, and then the phone went dead, and they never spoke again. Now, any knowledge about a last ping of the police or anybody ever told you his phone last pinged in a certain area?
The phone pinged last there was a phone tower at the end of Lakeside Drive, and that's gone.
Excuse me? Say that again, please.
The last ping from his phone was around 2:30 in the morning off of a phone tower that is right at the end of Lakeside Drive.
Okay, and how close is that to where his car was found?
Within a mile.
Within a mile, okay. And would you say in that area, is it pretty much just like one cell phone tower for the entire area?
I believe there's like maybe two.
Okay. All right. All right, so the ping is within the area of where his car was found, but he's missing, his keys are missing. Is his wallet missing as well?
His wallet, yes.
Okay. And we, of course, know that your charger is missing, too. This charger, how big would you say it is, how heavy it is, and if you don't mind saying, how much do you think it cost?
It was just one of the small ones. It had the battery charger. It had a flashlight on it. You could plug in, a phone to it. It was a Stanley. I got it at Walmart. It was probably like around $100.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. So that is missing, but it's easy to carry around. So it's certainly conceivable that if Brad walked off, he could have been carrying it with him. The mobile home park, did they have any access to any video, any security video, anything like that that could be helpful in this disappearance?
They had the only cameras to that place is in the front where the cars come in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was under the impression that the detective had looked at that video and found out later while EquiSearch was here that he had not.
So you're not sure if the police ever checked the video or not?
The videos were never looked at until EquiSearch was here.
Oh, okay.
The detective went into the office, but by that time it was too late, and any recordings, are gone after 30 days.
Right, taped over. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay. All right, let's go back. We kind of glossed over something before, but I think that we need to talk about it now, and that is Aubrey and this period of time that when you were gone with your son to go play tennis. Just to remind the listeners, you were under the impression that when you left with your son that Brad, of course, would just stay at home and hang out with his daughter, etc. But then you come back only to find out that after you left, he left with Aubrey. What did Aubrey tell you about where they went, what they did after you and your son went to play tennis?
Aubrey told me that they went and got water, and then she said that they went to the bait store. She said that he sent her inside.
Sent her inside to get bait?
Yes.
All right, what was it?
It was $5 worth of shrimp, live shrimp.
$5.
$5.
Okay. That doesn't, I'm not a real big saltwater fisherman. That doesn't, shrimp is fairly expensive, of course, when you buy it at a restaurant. That doesn't sound like a lot of shrimp to me.
It's really not, and it kind of just depends on how big the shrimp is. Mm-hmm. They go off of weight. So if you have a bunch of small ones, it could be a little bit more. If they're real big, it's nothing. It's not worth your time to go fishing with, in my opinion. Okay.
But that's what she said they did. They went and got this water. They went and stopped at this bait store, and he sent her in to get this shrimp. The way you remember it, did the police say anything about finding any shrimp bait in the car?
No. The bucket that Aubrey had said that she had got it in, along with the aerator that was with it, were not in the car or nowhere to be found.
So would you say that they are missing as well?
Yes.
All right, so we can add that to the list of missing things then. So we have not just Brad, but his keys to the car, his wallet, his phone, your charger, and that bucket and aerator.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But that... Is that all she said? I mean, you were gone with your son for almost 90 minutes. To hear Kaylee tell it, Aubrey and Brad left right after you did. So that doesn't sound like 90 minutes to me. Did Aubrey say anything else about anywhere else that they went?
She said that after they got bait, that they were daring that he was going to pick him up. And she said that when she got to the door, he drove off. And I'm assuming that's when he came back home.
But still like 90 minutes.
Right.
All right. So once again, the way she explained it, I mean, I'm certainly open to the idea that they did a variety of things, but she's your niece and you spoke to her about this. She said that they went to go get water. They went to go get bait, and then he dropped her off where Darian was, and she believes that he came home, but that's 90 minutes. That doesn't seem like enough time to cover up 90 minutes.
Correct. So at the time, yes, that's all that she said that they had done.
Okay. At the time, did she add to that story later then?
Yes.
Okay, recently?
recently.
All right, like within the last, let's just say, month?
Yes.
Okay. What was the addition to that story?
I had just asked her, it's a really long time for her to be gone just to get fish and water and stop by her boyfriend's house.
Mm-hmm.
But also, he wanted to go under the Oso Bridge to go fishing. She said that she had talked him out of it. And she said that he had also asked her where another place was to go fishing that was nearby.
Mm-hmm. At any point, did she say that they went to that spot where his car was found?
And they went over there. She said he was going to get his cast net out, but she had said that there were some people there, and she didn't feel comfortable, and she just wanted to leave. And so they ended up leaving.
Excuse me?
And they ended up leaving. I don't think she said they weren't there that long, that she had told him that she had some people that were over there, and so they got into the car, and she said that's when they left and went over to pick up Darian.
Okay. But when they went to pick up Darian, she went in there, and then she says Brad drove off.
Correct.
Okay. I'll ask you this again. At any time, did they go to the spot where Brad's car was found?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. She never said, yeah, he talked about going to that Stingray Lane to go fishing. Has Aubrey ever said anything like that?
No.
Okay. Now, we should say, probably explain something else, at least the way I understand the map from that area, is that Darian was living with a friend of his and his friend's parents, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, and his friend's name is Max. We'll not use his last name. But that property almost butts up to the property where maybe, I don't know where you're living now, but almost butted up to the property where you were living.
Correct.
Right? It's like only one lot over. So to explain it to the listeners, your backyard almost butted up against the yard where Darian was living.
Almost, yes.
Almost. Very, very close. In fact, of course, if you want to drive in the car, you have to go the whole way around the block. But from house to house, it was probably maybe less than a football field.
Correct.
Correct. So if she's saying, Aubrey is saying that Brad dropped her off at Darian's, that's just right there, like right on the other side of the house. Right on,
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's so that's the explanation. Once again, for the listeners, I'll be doing a video regarding all of these different locations. I'll be showing where you live, where Max lived or lives or lived. I'll be showing Stingray Lane. I'll be showing the McDonald's. I'll be showing the Jack in the Box, etc., so everybody can have an understanding of where these different locations are. So, Darian, do you have any idea how long Darian was living over on the next block?
I really don't, and I can't honestly say if he was actually just living there. I do know that he has been staying there for a little bit, but I think he would go back and forth from different places. He was also homeless, so he would kind of jump around.
Okay, so when you say homeless, you mean homeless. You mean
yes.
if he couldn't find somewhere to stay, he'd be out in the streets somewhere.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Did you know him very well, being that he was dating your niece? Did he come over to your house very often? Did you know him well?
I did not know him too well. He did come over occasionally. However, I didn't really let him come over that much. Okay.
The reason I'm setting this up, listeners, is because we're going to talk about this next, kind of put this maybe in the timeline. We have to remember that Ashley went to Jack in the Box, Brad went to McDonald's, but at some point after this disappearance occurred, Darian claims that Brad came by Max's house where Darian was living at the time. When did this story come out? When did Darian tell you this? Maybe you can, what was the conversation?
Darian had said maybe a week later, after Brad became missing, he was sitting outside of our house, and he had said that Brad had stopped by over there at Max's house after he went to McDonald's. And he said that Brad had asked him if Abe was at my house. And Darian said that he told him no. And then he said that he had asked or told him that he needed to talk to him about something, but he would talk to him later about it. And he left from there.
And Brad just drove off?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what's interesting to me, though, as I've already explained, is he's stopping at Max's house, which is on the next block, to find out if Abe is at your house, whereas your house is right there. Couldn't he not have driven by and seen whether Abe was there or not?
He could have. Yes, he could have.
He could have. Okay. But we also have to remember that this kind of state that he was in before you and he went to your respective fast food places. He was very obsessive. He was going through your phone. And you even explained early in this conversation that you believed he was looking for any communication you had with Abe. That was your suspicion.
Yes.
All right. So it's not crazy to think that maybe he did go by Max's and saw Darian and was asking, about Abe, being that Abe was just on Brad's mind a half hour, 45 minutes before that. Okay. So Darian finally tells you that a week later. Maybe he didn't even think that was important until he realized it. So, but this fishing part of this, you brought it up earlier about, he might have gone fishing, but like you said, it looked like the poles were not used for fishing. Of course, some of the fishing items are missing. I have to ask you your opinion. Do you really think that Brad intended on going fishing that night?
No, I do not.
You do not. Is there any one point in particular that makes you think that? I'm going to maybe just say this. Are you comparing this against all the other times that he went fishing? Or how do you come, how do you explain that, you thinking that way?
I just think that if he was going to go fishing, that he would have gone to somewhere that he knew about. Mm-hmm. He had a favorite spot, and that's where he would usually always go.
Okay. I have to remind everybody, this fishing spot is right down the street from you, and you didn't even know about it, and Brad had only been living with you for 6 weeks. I would be confused on how he would even know about it, right?
Yes, very confused.
Okay, so in addition, $5 of shrimp. The fishing poles didn't look like they were used, although some of the fishing equipment is missing. I'm sure the listeners are going to think long and hard about that. As far as the police go, regarding all of these people that we've talked about in this section of the interview, just to name off their names: Harvey, Darian, Max, Aubrey, Abe, maybe even Max's parents at the house. Do you believe that the police have talked to any or all of these people?
The only two people that I know that the police have talked to is Harvey and Abe.
Okay. You have any idea what those two have said about Brad's disappearance? Any idea at all? And maybe I have to ask, have you spoken to them one-on-one since Brad went missing?
Are you saying, have I talked to Harvey and Abe one-on-one?
Sure, I'll ask you again. So you're saying that the police spoke to them. Do you know what they told the police?
I do not know what they told the police.
Okay. Have you personally one-on-one spoken to Harvey and Abe? And if you did, can you say what they've said?
I've talked to both Harvey and Abe. Anything.
And they say they don't know anything about the disappearance.
Correct.
All right. Have Abe or Harvey ever offered up their own theory as to what could have happened?
Harvey had a theory that maybe Abe had something to do with it.
Wow. Okay.
But Abe, no, he's never offered really up a theory. You know, he's just kind of just as lost as all of us are on what happened.
Okay. Any idea why? Hey, and maybe I don't know if Abe knows this. I guess he's going to know it now. But any reason you can think of that Harvey gave you as to why he brought up Abe's name in all of this?
I really don't know why Harvey was pushing so much towards Abe at the time. I know that shortly after Brad became missing, Harvey and Abe got into an argument. Abe was living with Harvey, so Harvey ended up kicking Abe out of the house.
Wow.
I don't know if it was, I really don't understand theories of what could have happened. Harvey, they all worked together, so I'm sure there was some conversations that they had heard, about me, and I know that Harvey knows that Abe and Brad were both jealous. Abe may have been jealous because Brad was new into the house, and maybe he thought he was taking over his boys, and Brad, with Abe being jealous, he thought maybe, we were going to get back together. So I know there were some conversations in that. So I'm thinking maybe just out of Harvey theorizing on what happened at work and conversations that happened at work, that he would gather that information.
Sure. Maybe it just made sense to him, being that Abe and Brad were working for him. Maybe he saw some of the interactions between them. Could be something simple as that.
Correct.
Okay. You do need to ask, how close did Harvey and Abe live to you, to the location where the car was found? Do you know?
Harvey they didn't live that close. It was probably, I want to say probably about 5 or 6 miles from the location.
Okay.
I mean, it seems closer, but when you really think walking distance or driving distance, it was pretty far away.
Okay. All right, but once again, to your knowledge, those are the only 2 people the police have talked to. So the police, to your knowledge, have not talked to your niece. They haven't talked to Darian. They haven't talked to Max or his parents. Anybody that was in that little community around on that night.
No.
Okay.
I now bring the conversation back to Misty.
This is a topic that, welcoming Misty back into this interview, this is a topic I'm also going to talk about with Ashley, but I wanted to ask you about it first. And we have to remember that Kaylee got there that day, and her father, Brad, disappears that night. And Kaylee was only in Corpus Christi for a few days, but while she was there, not only did her father go missing, but her purse and all the contents in it were stolen. What do you know about this, and what has Kaylee said to you about it?
When talking with Kaylee about this situation, the day after her father went missing, she knows she had her purse when she went to Burger King, but she didn't. She doesn't. I think the purse went missing that night, from what I understand.
So so we have to think, if Brad disappeared on one particular night, roughly the next night is when her purse was stolen.
Yes.
Okay, and so where was this purse? Was it inside the house, in Ashley's house? Was it outside? Did she leave it somewhere by mistake? And we should know, for the record, so people know, is that this was a Louis Vuitton purse that was not cheap. So the purse itself has a decent value, not just the things in it. Do you remember what she said, where it was, all of that information?
I have 2 stories about the purse. One was that it was outside, the wallet was outside. And the other story was from Kaylee, that the purse was inside the house.
Well, it's Kaylee's purse, you'd think she'd know, right?
Agreed.
Okay. And I, of course, will be asking Ashley about this as well. But has there ever been any allegations that somebody broke into the house, or it does seem, I have to admit, a little strange to me that she would just happen to leave something out on a porch, and somebody would know that it was out there and steal it. But
right.
Okay.
We were told that Ashley was woken up at night by Aubrey saying that she thought someone was on the porch, and so they think that might be who stole it.
Okay.
Not quite sure. No.
Okay, and so here we are over a year later. Not only is Brad still missing, but her purse has never been found, and anything that was in it has never been found.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so we have that, and once again, I'm going to ask Ashley about that in a moment as well to give her side of the story as to what she remembers. Let's move on to this, Misty. You had already talked about a variety of sightings that didn't end up being Brad. You said there's a lot of guys out there that look like Brad, and I completely understand that happens a lot. Disappearances that we covered, a lot of misidentifications. But there seems to have been one in particular that got everybody's attention, and this was from a video in Oklahoma where your family lives. Why don't you tell the listeners about that? When did it happen? Where, etc.?
I don't remember the date specifically, but I do know that I got a frantic call via messenger from a friend of my brother, and he said, "I swear I just saw your brother at a gas station in Bartlesville." I swear, and he was.
In where?
He was Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Is that near where your family's from or not?
Not really, but Brad had lived here for a little bit. He had lived in a few different areas in Oklahoma, one being Bartlesville. And this friend of his is from that area. I think he lives in a town a little bit over. So, and that was June 14th that we went there to Bartlesville. My husband went immediately, and my husband's mother has a friend that works for the emergency management team there, and they were able to connect my husband and the sheriff's department there, and essentially my husband had two amazing guys to help him get the video from that gas station and determine that it was not my brother that was in that video.
Does it look like your brother?
It did, yes. But
okay.
The truck license plate was wrong, and the several people in the town confirmed that was them, including the man in the video, and the daughter confirmed that was them.
Okay. But I have to admit, I've seen a few different articles about it, and we're doing this interview on September 29th, 2020, so you're saying that this just happened like 4 months ago.
Right. Yeah, it actually gave us a whole lot of hope in some weird way. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously, if he just ran off, the thought of possibly finding him and knowing he was alive and safe, that was important. So.
Yeah. Right.
Well, anyways, but also good to know that it wasn't him.
All right, so this, and I can't even tell you how many times that happens, Misty. In fact, it can even be, I guess what you'd say worse than that people sometimes will make up things. They'll say that they saw somebody somewhere, and they'll check video, and there's nobody there. People just, what I call it is infusing themselves into the disappearances, just to get their, own attention. So at least that didn't happen. At least this was somebody who really believed something and it just didn't happen to be true, and that happens a lot too.
Right, and we were so grateful, just for him calling immediately and looking, immediately just felt in his heart that was him, and that's amazing that he immediately called me and reached out and definitely wanted to try and help find Brad. So.
Right. Okay.
And now turn the conversation back to Ashley for her final portion of the interview.
Ashley, I'd spoken to Misty about this as well regarding Kaylee's purse that went missing while she was staying with you. She only stayed with you for a few days, and then she went to move with some other family members, which I guess that makes sense being that Brad went missing. But this purse of hers that went missing, I guess it was like 24 hours after Brad went missing. What do you know about that? What can you say? And could it be connected to Brad's disappearance in some way?
I really didn't find out about it. Was actually a wallet, and I didn't find out about it until the day that her grandmother came to pick her up, and she had said that she needed to go back to the house because she left her wallet there. From my understanding, she had asked my son, my oldest son, if he would watch it or take it inside or something of the sort. And I think they were just sitting outside and just forgot about it. It was just sitting on a stool or something, and it was small. And I think nobody was really thinking about the wallet when they eventually went inside. And so when she went back to get it, nobody knew where it was at. It was missing.
Is it still missing? It is. And my understanding is this wasn't, in speaking to Missy, she called it a purse, but you're calling it more of a wallet. But either way, it was Louis Vuitton, correct?
I don't know the brand. I never asked what the brand was.
Okay, that's what I was told, and if it was legitimate, those things are not cheap. But so your understanding is that the purse was left outside on the porch or something, and it just went missing.
Correct.
And you didn't even know this until, I guess it's Brad's mother came to pick Kaylee up.
It was actually Kaylee's other grandma.
Kaylee's mother's grandma came to pick her up, and that's when it became an issue.
Yes.
Kaylee did not realize that it was missing?
I guess maybe she thought she had it packed up in her stuff and then realized that it wasn't and was going to go back and get it and couldn't find it.
Okay. Being that you lived there, did you ever have anything else stolen from outside of your house?
No.
Okay. All right. Anything that you've thought about over the past year plus that could be connected between Brad going missing and then Kaylee's purse going missing? Any proof. We have all the theories about a bunch of different things, but any proof that those two things could be connected in any way?
I have no proof. No.
No. Okay. What's this been like for you the past year and a few months, Ashley? You and Brad were in a relationship. You'd known each other for a long, long time and then got together again. He appears on your doorstep, I guess without letting you know, in July. You're trying to make things work. All the kids, they're under that roof. And then this happens. What's this all been like for you?
Well, it's been very difficult, physically and mentally, and I never really get my mind just never rests. I'm always thinking about that night, and it just constantly replays in my head. Mm-hmm. I'm always trying to come up with theories, but that's all it is. It's just theories. Mm-hmm. It's been very hard, very exhausting.
I bet. Do you think, given that you, of course, explained earlier in our conversation, this interview, that, of course, Brad was very nervous about his daughter. I mean, I think everybody was doing the right thing here, but Brad was very nervous about that. Do you think that would have, could have driven him to start doing drugs again? You know, given that he gave you that crack pipe and you destroyed it, and he was in the bathroom for 40 minutes, do you think it was that pressure that could be a factor in all of this?
It could have been, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was his way of, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was just his way of coping with everything that was going on around him, all the stress, the new, I feel like maybe that's why. I do. I feel like that's why.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he didn't know where else to do, and so he just turned to something that he knew.
Right. This past year, of course, we know that Kaylee went to live with somebody else. Where does Aubrey still live with you?
No, she recently moved back to Odessa. Well, she moved back in March of this year to Odessa.
Okay. And does Darian still live like just a block away with Max? Do you even see him? Do you even know what he's doing now? Anything?
So, no, I know that Darian, I did talk to him not long ago. I reached out to ask him some questions.
Mm-hmm.
He does still live in the Bluffs. Max no longer lives in that house. He's moved away from Corpus Christi. So I am not sure where he lives, but he does live in the Bluffs still, in Flower Bluff.
Do you still live in the same house where this all happened?
I do not.
You moved out.
I did.
Okay, was that part of the plan, or was it because of what happened there, or?
It was not. Eventually it was going to be, but not so soon. I think it had a lot to do with everything that was going on.
Happened. Yeah.
And I just couldn't be around there anymore. I was spending so much time outside and walking around and driving up and down the streets, and I had a specific route every morning and every evening that I would drive just to see if I could see him walking around or.
Oh.
And so eventually I had to move away. I had to so I needed to be a mom.
Right, of course. Of course. Do you talk to, of course, I don't know if all of your sons still live with you. I don't even know what their ages are, but do you talk to them about Brad? Does Brad's name come up? Maybe not daily, but once in a while. Do you sit with your sons and kind of theorize and throw ideas around, being that they knew him too? You don't have to tell us what those theories are because we don't do that, but does Brad's name come up once in a while?
Yes, his name comes up all the time. I still talk about it. I'm sure they're tired of me talking about it, but yes. I still sit around and still wonder and talk about things, and if I hear new information, I'm like, oh, yeah, there's a whole new theory, hundreds of theories, but yes.
Right. Now, I know some of the people might be thinking, well, his car was found near the water. Maybe something happened, and maybe, he went into the water and not to be morbid, but maybe drown, and then the homeless people come, and they, take all of his stuff. That's why the fishing stuff is gone. That's why the charger's gone. But the way you understand that area, if a body were to go into the water there, do you think it would be found?
I do think it would be found. The water is not that deep. It's probably, at high tide, I think it's only 3 or 4 feet. But low tide, it's, you can walk out there so far. You can walk way out there and still be, to your shin. You have a few deep spots, but for the most part, no. I think and there's people who wade in the water to fish.
Right.
So I think if his body had been out, no one would have spotted him. A lot of kayakers also go out there. So I do believe if he was in the water that he would have been found.
Plus, we have to remember this isn't a river. This is like the kind of the tributaries and kind of a bay that leads out to the Gulf of Mexico. It's not like this is like the Mississippi River with a very fast current, right?
Right.
The water is pretty placid, pretty still.
Right. I mean, you do have your undercurrents, and it's normal for the bay, but I think that current would have led him to land, especially in the specific area that it was. There's a lot of land around that area, and I do believe that if he was out there, that current would have pushed.
Okay. Any last words before we complete this interview, Ashley?
I would just hope that if anyone out there that knows Brad or knows what happened to Brad that could possibly be listening, that they would put they would put themselves in our shoes and imagine what it would be like for them to lose a family member or to have someone that they love dearly close to them go missing, and hope that they would do the right thing and come forward and happen. It can be done anonymously. You don't even have to say that you are, just to give the family some closure.
Right. Okay. Well, Ashley, I know that we will keep in touch. Of course, we'll keep in touch with, of course, Brad's sister Misty, his mother, and other people in his family. You know, so we'll keep in touch. And anytime you think you need somebody to talk to, anything, any questions about anything, I want you to know, Ashley, you can contact me anytime.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
You're welcome. And I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you. I'm glad to have been here.
I now complete the interview with going back to Misty for her final thoughts.
Misty, what's this been like for your family? It's been 13 months, so it's a relatively new disappearance, at least in Unfound's world, where the average case that we cover is like 17 years old. What have the last 13 months been like for you and your family?
It has been quite difficult. Our family holidays together all the time, and to always know someone's missing, you know, it puts a damper there. And of course, we all still celebrate, but everybody in their heart knows someone's missing, so that's tough. And holidays are all through the year, so of course we do our best to be together all much as we can, but definitely through every holiday. Watching my mother struggle and watching Kaylee struggle, that's really tough. I just want them to have peace of mind and know what has happened, and to be able to move. Because when someone disappears, you are definitely stuck in place. Everything around you moves, but you feel stuck. And I feel stuck. So that's what it's been like, just being stuck.
What is Kaylee said about all of this? Of course, she was there. She's just a teenager. But if you can say, what are some of her thoughts and feelings regarding her father's disappearance? If you can say.
She knows something happened to her dad. She just knows it. She feels it, and she wants those answers. And she's struggled a lot with this. And I just check in on her when I can and tell her I love her. She opens up sometimes, and sometimes she doesn't, and that's okay. She's struggling, but I want her to have some peace, some resolution, and some understanding as to what happened, and to know that none of this is on her, none of this is her fault, and that she's loved and she's an amazing girl.
Okay. Any last words before we complete this interview, Misty?
Yeah, I would love to say thank you to you for everything that you've done. Almost now, maybe a little longer, just back and forth, but I really, really, really appreciate what you've done to help put this together. And I'd like to thank Corpus Christi, that whole area, and all our friends and family for searching for Brad. They're all searching. They are all looking for him, and we appreciate it, and we hope that anyone who hears this will continue to help us search for Brad.
Okay. Should have asked you this as well. Do you have a Facebook page set up for Brad's disappearance, Misty?
Yes, we've had a Facebook page from the beginning. It's Help Find Bradley Brooks.
Okay.
And we keep it up to date. We're posting monthly right now due to the fact that we haven't had any knowledge, but the first 6 months we posted every day. The next 6 months we posted every week. And it just kills me inside each time that I have to write that we have no new news. And it's really, really hard. So we moved to monthly just because the pain of having to write that every day and then every week is daunting. It's a daunting task to even try to do. But I did it, and we'll continue to do it. We'll continue to be there talking about Brad and searching and hoping to find him.
Okay. Why don't you say that Facebook page one more time, Misty?
It's Help Find Bradley Brooks.
Okay. Misty, I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And those were my interviews with Misty Chapman, sister of Brad Brooks, and Ashley Nelson, girlfriend of Brad Brooks. I thank them for joining me and all of you on the program. As I stated before, I recorded a video that can now be found on Unfound's YouTube channel. If there was ever a disappearance that needed a video description, it's this one. The most astonishing part of those interviews is that both women acknowledge that Brad going fishing could have been a ploy. They both believe Brad could have been lying about it so he could get high, even though both realize Brad had been clean for a while. In fact, to hear Ashley tell it, it came to her mind quite quickly that Brad going fishing could be a cover-up for something. The question is, are Misty and Ashley correct in this assessment? Because we have to remember, the fishing poles were in the car. The bucket and aerator are missing. According to Aubrey, Brad did get shrimp for bait, although $5 worth sounds like almost nothing. And the car was found in a place where people do fish, even though Ashley doesn't think Brad knew that spot. However, it's tough to say what Brad did and didn't know about fishing spots in the area. But still, after all that, Misty and Ashley believe the fishing was a ploy. Interesting. You will have to decide what you choose to believe all on your own. Yet, I'm more focused on Brad coming back to the neighborhood after going to McDonald's, and that he asked Darian if Abe was at the house. Why would Brad do that? Brad lived at Ashley's. His daughter was at Ashley's at the exact second Brad and Darian were talking. Why not drive right around the corner to find out for himself? Not to mention that Brad had just left the house like 10 minutes before that. Did he believe Abe showed up in that short amount of time? Even odder is why ask Darian. Darian is like 20 years old. It's not clear to me that Brad and Darian were close at all. I'm not even sure Darian knew Abe. Yet if Brad was high, I guess any kind of conversation is possible. And as Ashley said, Brad went through her phone looking for signs of Abe that night. So Abe was certainly on Brad's mind. Yet even if we had answers to some of those questions, none of it would explain why some items are missing, but the rods and reels aren't, when the rods and reels would be worth more than anything else, including the charger. Did Brad walk off while carrying all that missing stuff? But think about this. Both Misty and Ashley believe that Brad's going fishing story was a ploy, meaning they did not believe that was Brad's true intention that night. Yet somehow, the car did end up at a fishing spot. Is that a coincidence? Or did someone know about Brad's ploy and planted the car there because of it? What I think I'm saying is, despite all the locations in this case, we keep coming back to that spot at the water's edge. I'll leave the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've been listening to Unfound.